Well, Aram, thank you so much for joining the Consistency Project today.
Thank you for having me. I got my Vietnamese coffee, which, by the way, when I was leaving the place, they actually have their nutrition facts on the wall. And for anybody listening, your morning coffee, just take a look one day and just see how many grams of fat and how many grams of carbs are in that baby. Because this little 16-ounce beauty right here, I think clocked in at 12 grams of fat and 48 grams of carbs, which I think was pretty close to 300 calories this morning. So that's what's happening.
Well, that's interesting that you lead in with that because I definitely have seen some of your stats when you post stuff about your diet, which is awesome. And I think you end up getting, obviously, you're very fit, have a lot of muscle, and I think you end up getting a lot of calories or can eat a lot more calories than, let's say, your target demographic. And so that was actually where I wanted to open because it was very interesting to me that you do have a very specific target demographic that I wouldn't have necessarily guessed. So what is your target demographic and how did you come to making that your focus?
I, I I don't know that I intended that to happen. It just kind of did.
Mm,
I work with at least mostly women 30 plus. I would say mostly on body comp improvement, fat loss, muscle gain. Obviously, some of the psychological factors that we'll dive deep into as
mm-hmm,
well. But they just self-selected. I think
mm,
I didn't really start like trying to niche down at all. I just was creating content I thought was practical for everybody. But it seems to me that women are the ones that are being swindled the most in the fitness industry because there's such a level of societal pressure to look a certain way and be a certain number on the scale. So women tend to be more sensitive about their appearance. And that's why
mm-hmm,
I think they just get sold so much garbage constantly.
mm-hmm.
Whereas, like, if a man puts on 30 or 40 pounds, like, nobody gives a shit. Like, they're like, you all right, dude? They're like, yeah, okay, cool. Like, nobody cares. Like, it's like dad bods are in. But like for a woman, if she puts on like 7 pounds, her friends are like running at her, being like, are you okay, Betsy? Like, is
Hmm.
something wrong? Like, do we need to intervene? Or it becomes such a hyper level of fixation on either body image or number, and there's always this level of like urgency or desperation to get these pounds off that I think the fitness industry has just positioned itself wildly in the favor of trying to get women to lose fat with all these different products and strategies that we know are mostly horseshit. And that's I just wanted to just give them an outlet like, hey, yes, I look like I do and I sound like I do, but I'm fighting for you
Mm-hmm.
because other people won't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is kind of crazy how much content there is out there that allows us to have quite a big market. I would say a lot of my demographic is similar. I definitely also work with men, but yeah, there's no shortage of women who need good, solid, basic nutrition advice. So you certainly have no shortage of clients. But yeah, you are right. Like today, I wanted to talk a little bit more about some of the external factors. Certainly on my podcast, we hammer stuff like how much protein and fiber, and I know you do all of that stuff, but I love a lot of your content around some of the other pieces that have to fall into place for people to be successful in terms of lifestyle or even mindset. And so that's kind of where I want to start is how important do you find identity is for someone achieving their nutrition goals? And I'm sure you've had one or two clients who didn't really see themselves as the fit person, as the successful weight loss person. How do they even go about that whole identity piece? Where do you start with them?
I mean, let's put it this way: I've had people that have lost over 100 pounds and still see themselves as a fat person,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm.
Because they've lived in that body for so long, and their new 100 pound, lower body is such a new vehicle to them. They don't even know how to kind of exist inside of it.
Mm.
And there's always this latent level of worry that I'm going to go back to this place. And it's a lot of convincing and just being like, you have no evidence that you're bad at this. Like, if
Mm-hmm.
anything, you have a lot of proof that you're good at it. Like, you have good habits, you're consistent, you have routines in place. Like, that's all I ever want from people. I don't, you know, we can sit here and hammer people about the importance of grams of this and grams of that and number of hours of this and that. But at the end of the day, like, can you just do this shit consistently for the rest of your life? And are you doing it to enhance your quality of life? So you don't have to look like a fit person to do fit person shit. Like, I know plenty of people that have body fat on them and don't have these wild level of showable aesthetics and noticeable aesthetics, and that are doing stuff that I'm not even close to being capable of. Like, I can't do 100-mile bike ride, but I'm leaner than 90% of the bike riders I see who can do it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I couldn't do a marathon run, but I've
Mm.
seen people that have worse body composition than me finish marathons under 4 hours.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I think the fact that people feel like they have to look a certain way to be a certain person is
Mm,
ridiculous. And that just comes down to it's just all the shit that we see. And just social media is not helping. I mean,
hmm
it's a great resource if you know how to use it responsibly, like anything else. But like, I mean, I'm 41 years old. I had to learn about fitness the old school way, which was secondhand information from the gym rats that I was surrounded by, which was actually a great source looking back at it now,
right.
because they were the ones in the trenches doing the work, right? Like
hmm
learning about slow eccentrics when I was 15 is now getting corroborated by research.
hmm
Learning about the importance of protein at 15 or 16, because these guys were teaching me in the gym, is now being corroborated by research. So, like, all this stuff that was bro science that I was exposed to is very much real science.
Mm,
So, but again, men and women difference, right? Men weren't targeted with these rabid messages of you have to be a certain weight
mm,
or size. It was
hmm
like you were either jacked or you were athletic or you were not. And there was like
hmm
three categories for men. Whereas for women, it was like, well, you have to be skinny, but then you can't be too skinny because then your ass has to be a certain size. But then if your ass is too big and your waist is too small, then that doesn't like.
right.
So it's women always trying to fit themselves into these societal boxes as opposed to being like, what is my body capable of? Why do I want to prevent fat gain at all costs? Because it's just unhealthy for me to carry around excess fat. And where's this happy medium that I have to find to be able to just maintain this level of effort that can undulate throughout the different seasons of my life?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's so much in there, but one of the things I love is science is always one step behind what the practical, people that are actually practicing it and preaching it are doing. And so it's always playing a matter of catch up. The people that are actually out there training know way more than what the studies show at this very moment. So I love that point. But yeah, I mean, one of the questions I've also heard you pose to your clients, and I'd love to know if you still use it, and how well it goes. But how do they cope? I think you asked them, how do you cope with stress without booze or food?
Yeah, that's a big
What
one.
are you really learning there? How are the responses? How do you handle that?
So I'll give you a little background about me. I was a very self-absorbed, immature person for a very large portion of my life. I was in finance for
Mm,
7 years, so I got caught up in that whole Wolf of Wall Street trap, just
hmm
chasing money, which really just meant running away from myself.
mm,
Booze, drugs, strip clubs, the whole nine yards, all the stuff that you've seen in movies. That was kind of my life for 7 years, and for me, it was understanding that life is bigger than just the next achievement.
hmm
And there was a lot of stress that came with that job. There was a lot of stress financially. I grew up poor my whole life. I'm an immigrant. I came here from Russia in 1989, so never really had the resources to kind of live a comfortable life. And I just always had like that chip on my shoulder. So stress was just always a part of it. And I never saw stress as stress. I just saw life as being stressful.
mm,
I didn't know any other way. Like I watched my parents work three jobs apiece, but they never expressed stress to me the way that I see it now. Like I see the people that I coach, or I see people on the internet, they flip out about everything. Everything is a problem. Whereas like the way that I grew up, Russians are just very cynical people. So in the Russian culture, like everything is a problem, but that's life. Life is a problem. And the
mm,
only way to deal with that problem is to smoke more cigarettes and drink more vodka and dance. And that's just how you dealt with it. So I can see why people lean into things that are comforting, like food and like booze and like anything else that's going to be an outlet. And there's nothing wrong with doing that every once in a while. Don't get me wrong. Like there's going to be times where I'll smoke a joint and I'll sit down and I'll eat an entire pint of ice cream and I'll finish a whole bag of Stacy's pita chips. But I'm not going to make that my normal coping mechanism because that's not going to be productive.
hmm
I mean, that's a far cry from where it used to be, which was cocaine and alcohol. So like, I'll take the Stacy's pita chips
right.
and the couple of puffs of a joint versus where I used to be. But that's evolution. Like it took me 10 years to figure that out. But I think for some people, like understanding the difference between like the normal stressors of life and just being able to manage them in a way
Mm,
that doesn't have to be reactive.
hmm
Like not everything is an emergency.
hmm
Right, like your kids having school is part of their life. Your kids having appointment. And by the way, like parents who are signing up their kids for 95 different sports, like, did you ask the kid if he wanted to play 18 different sports this season that you then have to Uber them to,
hmm
or did you just make that decision to get them out of your hair and then they become your driving responsibility? Like that's like these are the things that if I were a parent, I would be considering.
hmm
Because why am I going to make my life harder if this kid doesn't even want to do that thing? And it's all these little micro things that are pulling people to different directions. The social obligations that we
Mm,
like to use as, there's no such thing as an obligation social. You can very much just say no, and
mm-hmm,
nobody would care if you showed up or not. You know, I have to drink with my company dinner. No, the fuck
mm,
you don't. You don't
mm,
have to do anything. You're an adult. If you want to, go right ahead.
mm-hmm.
But you can fit in with your company outing just as well if you don't drink. I was sober for a couple of years when I was in finance, and nobody knew that I was sober
Mm-hmm.
because I walked around with a club soda and a lime in it, and
Looks
I
the
was always
same.
a good time regardless. Now, so these are all like, now there are real stressors, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
sick parents, aging parents, kids with issues, whether it's be ADD or ADHD or developmental
Disabilities, yeah.
problems, disabilities, financial burdens and stressors. Like those are all very legit things. But even in the presence of those things, you can still do the bare minimum for self care.
Mm.
I mean, I have a woman coming on my podcast who's a mother of 10.
Mm.
10. Didn't think that you can even produce that many children. She's widowed. She watched her husband shoot himself in the head and commit
Wow.
suicide in front of like half of her children. She has two businesses that she runs, and she is an active bikini competitor. So it's like, if a person like that, with all that on her plate, can make
Mm-hmm.
it work somehow,
Mm-hmm.
why can't other people?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And to me, that's why it's like, what's that person got that other people don't? Time management and stress management skills. That's it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They find other ways to cope with stress that aren't toxic to their mental health.
Yeah.
They probably know how to reach out to their support network. They probably know how to voice their emotions. They probably can spend some time sitting and thinking and processing versus just going task to task to task until they burn out. Like I mean, you can go on ChatGPT right now, which I do constantly, and ask it for journaling prompts. I can ask it
Mm.
for meditating skills. I can ask it how to deal with this or this problem. And it gives me suggestions on how to cope with stress.
Mm.
And people just don't utilize these tools often enough.
Do you, with your clients, when they come to you and they say, okay, well, I'm a stress eater, those are some of the first things that you say? Is it first figuring out if it's a true stress or not, in the sense of, can we just accept the fact that you might not be drinking at the company dinner? And then is it strategies like, okay, let's start journaling? Or what are kind of your tactical, when you, if a client comes to you and they're like, I'm a stress eater, I eat chips every time I'm stressed, a bag of chips every time I'm stressed, where do you typically go with that?
Well, I always challenge that belief system because it's like, you're not a
Mm,
stress eater. You're a stress eater when it's convenient to stress eat.
I see.
Like
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
you're not stress eating the bowl of nuts at work when you're
Right.
stressed out. You're only stress eating at 9 o'clock at night when the kids are in bed. So
Mm-hmm.
that's not stress eating. That's boredom eating. And it's understanding the differences between here. Well, I'll give you a perfect example. Like if you give yourself a 10-second delay from thought to action,
Yeah.
you'll very quickly realize that the identity or the picture you've created inside your own head is probably bullshit. Like
Mm,
I had a person trolling me today on one of my posts that went viral, and like, I that's when those stupid comments come out, and this guy was just being very like mean spirited, and at some point I'm just like, I'm just not going to engage. This will be my last comment, and
yeah.
that's it. And then he said something about me being a chubby trainer who's giving advice. So my very emotional immediate reaction was to post a picture of myself shirtless in front of the mirror, post his comment, and then say, I guess I'm that fat trainer giving advice, which I did. And then like 10 minutes later, I'm like, that's stupid. I'm playing into his stupid
Yeah.
game.
Playing in the
I'm
game. Yeah.
being just as immature as he is. So I'm being emotionally reactive versus spending 10 seconds thinking about this and being like, this is never going to matter to me after today.
Mm,
So I deleted it. I posted a video instead saying, hey, this is what's happening and this is why I deleted it. And then I moved on with my day. And I think
mm-hmm.
a lot of people just don't spend enough of that self evaluation time from thought to action.
Mm-hmm.
And then they immediately create this problem in their head of identify. It's no different than the person who has depression issues or who's diagnosed with XYZ disorder. And then they kind of use that disorder to wrap themselves with it.
Mm,
And then every action is then dictated, well, I do this because I'm this condition.
mm.
Well, no, like you have this condition and you can still do these things despite this condition.
Right. Don't
So
actually develop the identity of it. Yeah.
and I think what happens a lot of times, because I've been through therapy and I've done CBT and all this stuff, and I think where CBT will fail a lot of people is it doesn't actually challenge them to think differently. It almost
Mm,
uses the diagnosis to then keep people very comfortable and living in the
mm-hmm.
past.
Mm-hmm.
Not all CBT,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah.
Some of it's great, but I have a lot of people that, 250 pounds plus, not very mobile, very, very overweight, very
Mm-hmm.
under muscled. And the narratives that they use almost are keeping them stuck in that place. It's
Yep.
like, well, I have an eating disorder. It's like, okay, so do like millions of people in the country. But there's people that have active disorders who then also have certain habits that prevent them from succumbing to their disorder. So, what about your environment? What are you doing? What stories are you telling yourself? Who are you surrounding yourself? What conversations are you having? What are you reading? What are you looking at? And are you actually doing anything to overcome this disorder? Or are you just sitting inside of it and waiting it to get worse? Because that's what's going to happen. So it's just challenging those types of thoughts, and that's the inner work is the hard part because the macros, the calories, the
Yeah.
sets, the rep, like that shit is so easy. Like you and I can spend one morning on Instagram
Yep.
for an hour teaching the entire
The whole
world
thing. Yep.
it like this, and they would all understand it perfectly. And then, well, then why don't they just do it? Because of all these other
Other
psychological
stuff.
issues that they have that are involved, and it's always the person looking back at you in the mirror that's the problem. Always.
Yeah. Yeah, the 10-second delay I think is a good also tactical approach just because so many times it's like you finish the bag of chips or whatever and then you regret it. It's like, what if I just gave myself that little bit of gap time before I even started, right? So, good stuff.
Impulse control. I mean,
Impulse control,
but
delayed
these but,
gratification.
but these things are designed for us to do that with. Like nobody's impulsively eating celery sticks.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah,
You know what I mean?
exactly.
Like
Yeah.
nobody's impulsively being like, "Oh man, I
Overeating
can't wait
fruit.
to I'm going to take down this grilled chicken." Like nobody's doing that. It's like I want to like I'm going to drink 5 of these things cuz they're
Right,
tasty.
right.
And that's become a habit of mine. Like this is like honestly like I started doing this a couple of weeks ago, and now I'm like, I can just go and run out and grab a coffee and come back, and it's like a little treat.
Uh
But
huh.
that becomes a habit, and that
Habit.
becomes a narrative that you tell. Like I have to have it. No, you don't.
No, you don't. Yeah. Yeah, you can just change that narrative the next thought you have. You mentioned environment. This is a I guess pushback or barrier that I find a lot with my clients is they want to clean up their environment. They want to make it easier to make better decisions. They want to have the fruit out, all the stuff, the lean protein, the chicken, and then the significant other's not really on board. Or kids, and maybe we don't want the kids to feel like they have to have disordered eating. We all know that you can have pretzels. We just don't want to have it as our only meal all the time. So how do you handle that with clients when it's like, "Hey, I'm on board, but I just don't have the support of the other people around me?"
First place to start is the conversation you have with your household. Like if let's say for example, mom's going to start making a change, she has to let everybody else be aware that things are going to start to change because that person is usually the one responsible for the grocery shopping, the food preparation, most of the time. Like
Sure, sure.
that's not being sexist.
Yeah.
That's just understanding the way of the world. I mean, I work with 107 people. 98 of them are women, and I would say out of those 98, 90 of them are the ones who shop and cook.
Right.
Whereas, like maybe the husband will pick up the other 8 people. Like, so if that's the case, and you want to change the environment, good. Tell people in your house that things are going to change, why they're going to change, and what you expect from those people as a level of support. And if they're unwilling to support you, now the little kids, like, they don't really get a choice. Let's be
Yeah.
honest. It's the older kids in the family and it's the adults in the family that need to be made aware of this stuff so they can either be on board or they can stay the hell out of your way. Because at the end of the day, like, if you're the matriarch of the household and you're the one who does all the cooking and all the grocery preparation and shopping, well, then you get to dictate what's in that fridge. So if you don't, if there's certain things that are tempting to you, then maybe stop keeping them in the house and right in front of your face to where when you're vulnerable, you're going to grab that stuff. And for some people, they have to be abstainers until they learn how to be moderators. Guilty as charged. Like I have to learn how to be an abstainer first and just be like, I don't need it. And then when I'm not exposed to it, I don't think about it. When I don't think about it, I don't want it. And then eventually it just becomes less of an appeal. And then I learn how to control myself around it. And that's just,
Yeah.
that takes months of conditioning. But I think it's an unfair thing to say or short-sighted thing to say that like, well, my kids won't follow along. It's like, they don't have a choice. And I don't think your husband really gives a shit either. At the end of the day, like he's going to probably eat whatever you put on his plate. So if it's grilled chicken, broccoli, and rice, tell him to put barbecue sauce on it if he really wants to. Like at the end of the and after about a week of that happening, nobody's going to care anymore. And if they really wanted to, then they have Uber Eats that they can figure it out. So
Yeah.
I think this idea that they have to create this like, and who's really sitting down at a dinner table all together eating these days anyway? Like I don't really know a lot of families who are doing the old school like mom at this head of the table and dad at this head of the table and the kids are on these sides of the table and they're all having these amazingly joined dinners. It's like One kid's coming home from practice, husband's walking in from work at 7 o'clock at night, mom's already in the kitchen, two of the other kids are in the living room, they're all eating in different areas. Like that's life.
Mm-hmm.
So you get to dictate that. And if you're the person who's trying to go down on this journey, as long as you've made everybody aware of the changes and you're trying to get everybody to understand why you're making these changes so they
Mm-hmm.
understand, because there's nothing wrong with tracking your food in front of your kids or
Mm-hmm.
teaching them about protein. It's when you're sitting there being like, well, I'm fat, so then I have to.
Right.
Or I don't like the, you know what I mean? When you're starting to do this like self-hate talk in front of your developmental children who are young, who are going to have these habits later, if you're saying like mom needs to be stronger so you don't have to pick mom off the floor at 70, that's why she's eating more protein, that's why she's tracking her food, cool, that's a good reason.
Mm.
But I hate the way I look, I'm so fat, I'm not going to eat this because this is bad food, that's a different story.
Yeah. No, I'm glad you brought that up. I want to circle back to that. But so you would say with most of your clients, you found that, assuming they're the ones doing the meals and stuff like that, they take the lead, and most of the time the family will fall in line. Yeah.
They have no choice. Like
Yeah.
maybe after like 4 or 5 days of bitching, they'll
Right.
realize like nothing's going to change. But
Or it's
that's
really not that bad. I still get my
no.
meals prepared for me.
Right, and I think it's also empowering for the family when they see changes happening and the whole family gets involved
Hmm.
because everybody's going to benefit from that. And I think a lot of times this idea of like, well, my husband's or my spouse is sabotaging me, they're not doing it on purpose.
Mm.
They just
Mm.
don't really care about your goal
Hmm.
as much as you do because
Yeah.
they don't have your problem, they don't have your belief system. So, and this is where I think a lot of people in relationships just have poor communication skills and they
Hmm.
don't really ever speak their piece.
Hmm.
And a lot of women are taught, unfortunately, to be quiet and dainty and not say what's on their minds, and they have to just conform to everybody else. Which I try to empower all my women. Like if you have a problem with the way something is being done, say something.
Hmm.
Like why are you living in this level of fear and hesitation that's affecting your mental health and your quality of life just to be this ideal wife for somebody who doesn't give a shit?
Hmm.
So at some point, like you could either live miserably or you can make someone have some uncomfortable conversations, and if you don't get on the same page, that's probably a reason to not be with this person. Like
Mm.
if something as simple as a fat loss goal is putting a wedge in your relationship, that person should be supporting you wholeheartedly to you for you to be a healthier person. Why wouldn't they?
Hmm.
Who in their right mind would
Yeah,
not
doesn't want
support
that.
their wife to lose some weight and to be stronger and to be more confident? Like anybody that stands in the way of that is not somebody you need around.
Mm. I like that you brought up the about talking and tracking in front of kids, because I certainly get that a lot with my clients. They're concerned about what messages it's sending, and I think you're right. Right, just take it from the education and health point of view, and I can fuel myself, and I can fuel myself to be stronger, and I can fuel myself to live older versus the deprecating. I need to look better in whatever outfit. Yeah, is the
I
best
love the
approach.
idea of just context. And I think
Hmm.
that's where like context unfortunately takes time. And it takes having multiple conversations until people understand context. But again, communication skills. Like we're living in a world that's getting this fast, and everything needs to be fast and quick. And I don't have time to explain this to you. It's like, well, that's the problem.
That's the problem. Yeah.
If you spend some like these people, these 4 year olds that you're in front of will understand to some degree what you're doing, and if they don't understand, they're subconsciously picking this stuff up.
Hmm.
So, what message are you sending to that 4 year old daughter who you don't want to have an eating disorder? I mean, I've seen like 7 year olds dieting.
Mm.
Like I've heard, one of my clients sent me a video about like that her daughter saw on TikTok, and it was like this 7 or 8 year old girl talking about like cutting carbs and all this stuff. And I'm like, you're set. Like the last thing I don't even know
Yeah.
what the fuck a carb was at seven
Right.
years
Yeah.
old. I was just shoving cookies down my throat and running around outside like a normal kid was. But again, like social media, it's getting
Hmm.
accessed at an earlier age. So this type of garbage information is getting hit with people now early. So if there's been a time ever to educate your children about nutrition, it's now.
Hmm. Yeah.
And we have all the tools. Like the idea that putting like it's okay to put something on a scale when you're baking a cake with your kid, but it's not okay to put chicken on a scale at night
Hmm.
for dinner in front of your kid. So why? Like why?
Hmm.
Where's again context? If you explain to them, hey, I need to weigh this stuff so I understand how much I'm missing in my nutrition,
Hmm.
and because I need more protein, because more protein means more muscle, which means
Hmm.
more strength, which means mommy's happier and
Hmm.
fitter and healthier. I don't. How can that possibly be conceived at some point as disordered?
Yeah. Well, that's another pushback I get, typically more from my female clients, although not always, is, you put out this protein number, and I think we're somewhat similar where we land on that. But oftentimes I find with women more than men, it's difficult to hit that number out of the gates. What are your kind of big tips, or what's the barrier there that they really need to get their mind around?
Well, we have to see if they're eating like real protein or they're eating like
Mm.
Franken protein, right? Like it's not hard to smash 4 core lives a day,
Mm-hmm.
but that's hardly going to be filling. So
Mm-hmm.
what I always tell people is like it's not just about calories. I think calories are obviously going to be the thing that determines what size you are. But let's understand that if we're trying to be a smaller, less fat person, well, we need to be in some sort of a deficit. And the way to do that with as little suck as possible is to be as full as possible. So if we
Mm-hmm.
eat mostly real food, which takes effort on our part to prepare ahead of time,
Mm-hmm.
then we'll probably be able to curb some of that hunger. We'll be eating more filling, more dense meals. And then we use convenience when necessary. Like if you forgot a meal and you got to stop at the gas station and grab a banana and a core power, fine. But if that's your go-to because you just don't want to spend the 2 hours in the kitchen it takes a week to bulk prepare your proteins, then you got a problem because you're gonna be hungry.
Mm-hmm.
And you can only stave hunger off for so long before it becomes this buzz in your head that you just have to absolutely satisfy by any means necessary. And that's where these problems come from. It's not that I don't think women are necessarily trying to avoid protein consumption. It's that it's just easier for them to do it the I want to call it the easy, the convenient way, right? Like the
Mm-hmm.
protein bars, which
Mm-hmm.
I mean, shit. I don't think I've ever had a protein bar that's ever sat well with me. They always taste really good or chalky, and then they just feel like shit inside my stomach. Like if I can eat 300 grams of chicken
Mm-hmm.
that's well seasoned, and I can be completely digestively fine, no
Mm-hmm.
distension, no bloating, no gas, nothing. But I can eat like one Built bar, and I can feel it for 3 hours, and that's just my body's way of telling me eat real food.
Mm-hmm.
And don't
Mm-hmm.
get me wrong, like I'm not
Right.
void of fat and
Vietnamese
sugar and
coffee.
everything else, but like there's just certain things that just don't sit well. Like if you're going to do a protein, an artificial protein, at least make yourself a shake
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because then you can put the protein powder in, you can add other ingredients to it that equate to what you need and what your preferences are, as opposed to just trying to go through the motions of trying to make it as thoughtless as possible.
Mm.
Because it's that I don't want to have to think about an approach that's gotten you to this place of
Point.
misery in
Yeah.
the
So
first
far.
place. Like I want you to be an intentional thinker, an intentional eater, because people that eat with intention are going to be much more likely to be able to at least maintain their weight.
Yeah, totally sustain it in the long term. They know what they're doing. Yeah, yeah. So a lot of it's the prep, for sure.
Yeah.
It's amazing how nutrition. It's so funny. I do this master class. I love the education component as well with my clients. I actually don't want them as long term clients simply because I want them to be empowered. But it's interesting. By the end, they're like, "Wow!" So if I just sort of prep, this all comes together. It's like, yeah,
That's
we can
it.
talk insulin, cortisol, all this stuff, but gosh, you just prep and it's pretty good. It's pretty easy.
I mean, and where did we go wrong? Like, it seems like we went from a society that always ate dinner together, that ate
Mm,
mostly meals at home, to overnight, everybody became a restaurateur and a foodie. And
mm.
I think it's just because it's so easy to
It's easy.
access
Yeah.
now. And like, granted, like I grew up in Connecticut, in Southern Connecticut. I was 40 minutes from New York City. I mean, you're talking about a playground of all the best food in the world.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. I always encourage people to like go and get the slice of pizza at the new place that opened up. Go try the new ice cream spot. Go try the new cheesecakes. Like try all this stuff. That's what it's there for. But these types of foods are meant to be indulgent,
Mm-hmm.
decadent,
Mm-hmm.
and treats that. But you don't treat your dog all day long.
Mm,
You treat it when it does something good.
mm-hmm.
Now you shouldn't have to use food as a reward either, but that should not be the basis of your consumption. Like no
No.
restaurant gives a shit about weight management.
No.
The best thing I ever saw was a meme from Anthony Bourdain. It was like my job is not to keep you fit and healthy. My job
Mm-hmm.
is to entertain you.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
that's all it is. That's what a restaurant is. But now people are relying on takeout food and restaurants and delivery apps to sustain their basic daily nutrition. And that's just not the right way to approach it because you have no control over what they do to your food.
I always tell my client or classes and clients, it's like some of these salads, and it's legit, are 1,600 calories. I don't know what I would do at my house to come up with a 1,500 calorie salad, like
I
a
would have
butter
to
stick.
I would have to dump at least 5 to 7 gallons of dressing on it
Yeah.
and pour all of the cheese I had in
Right.
my drawer
Right.
and pour all of the nuts I had in the bag onto it. That's the only way to do it.
And that's how they make
But
it entertain you because a regular salad at home isn't quite. Yeah. Yeah.
no.
Okay, the last topic I want to tackle, resistance training. You like that one?
I love that one.
Okay, so we got busy parents. As far as I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you might recommend resistance training up 3 to 5 times a week for your clients ish, somewhere in that ballpark. What about the barrier maybe of time? Like obviously going for a walk could be a little bit easier, more accessible. Even doing a quick hit type of workout in the basement. I come out of the CrossFit community. That type of thing is a little bit more accessible in my opinion than let's say a true progressive overload program that you might have to go in barbells, heavier weights, all of that stuff. How do you help people with that barrier? What kind of strategies do you see with your successful clients, busy parents, busy professionals who are trying to hit this higher level of resistance training?
Depends on where they start. I spoke to a woman this morning who's a truck driver, and she was telling me about the different obstacles she has with getting into a gym because, like, sometimes she won't get out of work till 9, and she lives in like some bumfuck town in South Dakota that all the gyms close at 7.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, okay. Well, at that point, if you know that you don't have access to a gym, then you're going to have to probably get away with some type of home equipment,
Mm-hmm.
something.
Mm-hmm.
Now, obviously, the gym option is always cheaper. And to me, the gym gives you
Yeah.
the equipment that you need to be able to get the most out of that equipment, right? Like,
Mm.
I don't see any like, listen, plenty of amazing bodies and amazing strength athletes were created from just dumbbells and barbells and benches. But that they require a higher level of proficiency that also requires a level of a learning curve to occur.
Mm.
A lot of parents don't have that time, nor do they want to spend that time to sit there and learn how to perfectly do a dumbbell single arm row.
Mm-hmm.
And unless they're getting feedback on that dumbbell single arm row and they understand what body part is supposed to be doing the work and what muscle is supposed to be activated, they have no idea why they're even doing that exercise to begin with. So to me, it's like, where are you starting from? Are you starting from a place of zero? Then anything above zero is good.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
at that point, it's like, just go to Orange Theory. I don't give a shit. Like, if you're
Mm-hmm.
not training with any type of weight whatsoever,
Yeah.
F45, Orange
Everything's great. Yeah.
Theory, CrossFit, that will completely get you started.
Mm-hmm.
But if you've been in that environment for, let's say, 3 to 6 months and you've stagnated, well, yeah, you're going to stagnate because typically those places aren't going to be conducive to progressive overload. Now, progressive overload doesn't mean you have to do an hour's worth of work.
Mm-hmm.
You can do 20 or 30 minutes worth of work that's completely still overloading you, and you could pick 2 movements or 3 movements and just go round robin.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I was telling, like, I created these express workouts for my clients that are a push, a pull, and then either a hinge or a squat. And that's it. They
Mm-hmm.
literally just do 3 or 4 sets of it in a row with a couple minutes rest in between. They live in the 6 to 12 rep range and they go to failure on most of the sets, and that's it. Like, that's all they need to do. Are
Mm-hmm.
they going to become bikini competitors and bodybuilders? No. But is it going to stave off sarcopenia and is it going to build some bone density? Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and so that was kind of my final question about resistance training. I think, again, with the women clientele, helping them understand what intensity looks like while lifting. So you really encourage a certain rep range there to failure. And that's kind of how you show them, okay, this is how we're going to make progress and keep increasing their weights. What's kind of your guidance there for them?
So I usually give people like a 2 rep buffer. Like, if you have a 6
Mm,
to 12 rep range, if you could do 14 or more of something, then it's probably too light.
mm,
And if you can barely get 4 of something, it's probably too heavy.
yeah,
And that's
yeah,
it. Like, it doesn't have to be any more complicated than that.
totally.
And failure to me on most movements, especially machine-based movements, is the inability to perform even half of a rep on
Mm,
your last rep.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Now, on things like overhead press or um, any type of heavier deadlift, squats, where there's a higher risk of injury, I'm not going to have you go to failure there. I'm going to probably have you go 1 rep shy of failure and just really feel that slow burn at the end to really try to struggle through that last rep of movement. But you know you had one more left in you.
mm-hmm.
On everything else, tricep extensions, bicep
Yeah,
curls, lateral raises, leg extensions, go to like what. There's no
yeah.
very little downside to train those things to failure. The risk of injury is so low; it's almost immeasurable at that point. And like outside of a twinge, you're going to probably be fine.
Yeah. Yeah, I think even just explaining that to clients, like failure is okay. Like there's this idea of the check the box, let me get the 12 reps in, but it's like actually the best set of 12 was a set of 11. Right? So to kind of give them that green light, because I find there's a lot of confusion about what resistance training is and how do you do it. And there's so much overthinking about it. And it says you just got to work hard consistently at some basic movements and challenge yourself. And you're going to actually see some incredible progress. Again, not going to be winning any awards on some bikini competition, but it's like you can make like really strong.
I haven't really changed the basis of my training in 20 years.
Hmm.
I mean, I've gone through like phases where I'll lean into a methodology, And I would say the methodology I preferred the longest and I got the most out of was probably more bodybuilding style training. I mean, think about it. What do most people want? Better body comp. Who
Yeah.
are the best at that?
Yeah.
Bodybuilders. Like,
Yeah.
it stands to reason that we're gonna at least be emulating the people that we want to look like, right?
Do you have any, I guess, before I let you go, out of kind of the bigger lifestyle, diet and exercise mindset, is there something kind of barriers that you feel like I didn't really touch on that come a lot for your clients that you help them with?
I think the idea that there's a finish line. I think sometimes people think like I'm gonna do A to get to B and then that's it. It's like, well, no, because then you have to maintain all that stuff, right?
It's the hard part.
The analogy I always give people is like, if you get the raise at work, it's because you had merit to get the raise, which means you probably worked harder than other people. That's why you deserve the raise. But now you're going to be expected to do more work because now you're getting paid a higher salary. It's the same thing with body comp. As you start getting closer to the top of the mountain, the climb gets harder.
It does.
So you can't really let your foot off the gas from all the stuff you did from A to B, from B to C. Like that has to accumulate, and that body of work has to accumulate. So if you're not ready for the heights of leanness, or if you're not ready for the heights of these extreme levels of body comp, then don't attempt it, because what you're going to do is you're going to get there, realize you can't sustain it, fall back down the mountain, and if you're not emotionally prepared to take that fall, you're going to be miserable the whole time. Like this is what happens to a lot of bodybuilders after competition prep. A lot of women specifically who do one show, they put on 30 pounds after their show, and then they're miserable and they destroy their body image, they destroy their relationship with food because they expected to walk around stage lean 365 days a year for the next 10 years. Whereas anybody that's ever achieved any level of low fat mass realizes it sucks, it's sacrificial, it's miserable, it's not fun. And there's a nice happy medium that's probably heavier than you think it is. That's going to be a hell of a lot easier to sustain. That's going to allow you some level of enjoyment and flexibility without killing yourself. And that's where I want everybody to get to.
I know people ask about bulk and then cutting, and I'm like, how about we just maintain? How about we
The
just find
hardest,
the maintain?
that's the hardest. Honestly, I think maintenance, especially for women, because it's so ambiguous.
Yeah.
Like, what am I maintaining? It's like good habits,
Right.
quality. Like, is sleeping well, having a bowel movement every day that you're happy with, having strength, having energy, is that not good enough? Like, is that not good enough for you to get through Monday through Saturday? Now, if you really want to go and push it, cool. Give yourself a runway of opportunity, clear your schedule, clear all your social calendars, because that's what it's going to take. And at least book a photo shoot afterwards. Like, at least capture some memories from it. Because it's like, if you're going to bleed for it, and it's only going to last for a few weeks, at least have something to remember it by. And then also remember the misery it took you to get there. Because that's what everybody forgets. Everybody loves the idea of standing on top of the mountain, but like you forgot about that 6-day climb that it took to get to the top of Everest that you get to now find. But you only enjoy it for 30 seconds.
Yeah, I try to set my clients up at the beginning. We're just finding the forever diet. We're riding off into the sunset with this one.
That's a great concept, honestly. That's the best way to do it. And that's why your clients get results, and that's why you're as good at what you do as you are, because you paint with context. You're one of the only people I see on Instagram who actually fucking takes any minute to explain anything to people, because unfortunately what a lot of female coaches do is they say shit like build muscle, burn fat. Yeah, 0.6% calorie increase from an added pound of muscle. Was it 6 calories for a pound of muscle? It's not like overnight you're going to go from being able to handle 1,500 calories to now I can eat 2,500 in a week. Like, it doesn't work like that.
No.
But you do a great job of saying, hey, this works like this, but then this is all the subtext that you need to understand. So please read the goddamn caption because I'm spending time writing it.
And you know how much time it takes. Thank you for all of your content. Tell everybody your handle again.
It's 4 weeks to the beach. The number 4, the number 2, and it's not a promise of a quick fix.
That's probably another conversation. How did you come up with that one?
I just thought it would be a catchy book title at some point.
Yeah. No, great content there. You also put a lot of context around your posts. Also love all your showing of your own diet and stuff like that. And then, like I said, you have some mess ups. Everybody has some mess ups. Everybody eats a box of Wheat Thins every now and then, if I recall correctly. And also some of the stuff that we talked about today. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you, Lisa. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for tuning into the show. this week. Thank you to Aram for his time and his wisdom. One more time, if you want to learn more about his summit, head to Instagram at real.coaches.summit. You can get all the goodies there. Do make sure you're subscribed to the show wherever you're listening to this so you do not miss another episode. EC and I will be back next week for a brand new episode of the Consistency Project podcast.